Growing up, my idol was Jacqueline Dupre, because of not only the fact that she a lovely, amazing cello player, but the way that she played. To be able to see someone in the classical world who was celebrated and loved, but to also someone who played with such wildness and like freedom, I was like, wow, I like that.
Jacqueline Dupre was also an idol to me since I was young. I mean, a lot of times I remember people asking me, who's your favorite violinist? And I would draw a blank because for me, like, I would appreciate a variety of different violinists for different pieces of music or different ways, like styles of playing. But the first name that would pop in my head was Jacqueline Dupre, and then I think, wait, that's not a violinist. So how do I answer this question? But I agree, like in an industry where we feel like, a lot is boxed in and traditions, seem to rule over everything. It was so wonderful as a young musician, but even now, when I'm older and this has become my profession, I love going back and seeing videos of her. She's just so freely expressive, and she treats classical music like it's not what most people typically think of as classical music.
Right, right. And just like what you said earlier, like classical music for the most part, it wasn't always classical music. It was just music, and people were so free with their expression and improvisation. And somehow over history, that's because I think when you hold on too tight to try to preserve something, you're actually killing it in a way. Not, okay, that's a little dramatic. You're preserving it, you're freezing it. So you're not allowing it to evolve or grow. And that's how it was created. I mean, like you said, so many pieces were just literally just improvised or, last minute, I got to do a piece tomorrow, like a piece that's commissioned by the prince of whatever. You just do it, and music was always new, and it was always like new premieres, like every week in church and different things. It was all new. I'll also tell people, I'm like, you realize like classical musicians, we're all cover artists, right? Like, because we're all playing the same pieces over and over. And it's so rare to like see somebody and hear someone do it in a way that's so different and so like, whoa, like I'm really interested in what's going on. And I love that about you. I love that about, Jackie. And so I think that's just what I'm attracted to.
Yeah, I mean, I could say the same thing about you. You bring so much freshness to how you experience music on stage with other musicians and with your audiences. And I think it's so great that you commented on how, classical music back then was just, sometimes it was something that was last minute, and it made me think of how, I remember learning that Mozart would sometimes write down the piano part to his concerto after he already performed it. It's like, okay, wow, that's super impressive, but also he really did not prepare ahead of time, which is so opposite of what we're taught, and it actually makes me think it's more like what you and I will experience today in the TV or film industry, for example. We'll be playing something that a composer just wrote, and as we're recording, the composer can say, actually, can you change that? I'd rather have it be this way. And then the music changes right in front of you as you're creating it. And same thing on film scoring sessions when you're playing in the orchestra, and suddenly everything stops because the composer wants to rewrite that part for the film, and then you move on to something else and come back to it because it's all happening in real time.
Yeah, it's real, or on the occasional, not that it's a good thing, but there's been times, I'm not going to name names or specifics, but I'll mess up on a part, and I'll be like, oh my god, I totally played the wrong note. So it's fine, it sounds great, just keep going. It's not, of course there's certain people who are very particular, but for the most part, it like you said, it's alive, it's breathing, it's changing, it's open. And I think exactly, I guess modern classical music, or whatever you want to say, is film and TV music. That's how it's continued into modern day existence, which is a great thing.
There are a lot of musicians out there, not necessarily classical musicians, who have experience when they were young in classical music, or who grew up training with it, who had a passion for it from the beginning, or were simply led into it because of their circumstances or their family. Do you know other musicians like yourself who have started out in similar ways?
I mean, to be honest with you, in like my industrial metal explorations, I'm sure there are other musicians. Of course, there's Apocalyptica, the cello metal band, the original one, I would say. They do play on acoustic instruments, but with effects and whatnot, and they're amazing. And they're a bit older than I am. And I'm, of course, they came from a classical background, because I feel like any, string-based player did start with a classical background. I have met a few other people who play electric cello who, yes, also came from a classical background. So definitely having a classical background and training is good for everybody, including, even like the best like guitar shredders and bass shredders who are virtuosos, the majority of them had obviously classical training, because that's, not, I don't want to generalize, but I do think a lot of music came from the European art music form.
So there was also a Yo-Yo Ma video that you said really inspired you, and I'm curious to know, like, how much of it was his performance and how much of it was the piece of music, the Swan?
Well, I think the Swan, which most people, if they are familiar at all with classical music in any sort of way, or if you're a cello student, that's part of like the Suzuki repertoire, or, it's such a popular piece. And I do feel like that sometimes pieces that are almost made into, not on purpose, but turn into almost caricatures of classical music, because it's just so, so done so often. And you hear it done so often that when you truly, okay, so if two people play the same piece, it's not going to sound the same. And I truly feel like it's not the same piece, because it's you putting your soul and your spirit and all of your human experiences and everything else, blah, 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 through that. And you're expressing something in your own way, but using those words, right? Just like say, I love you to you, but you can say it in like a million different ways, all with slightly different connotations that the person hearing it understands. So for me, I just really, really love the way that he, I guess, approached it in a technical way and a melodic way. I'm maybe untastefully so, much more melodramatic in the way that I play, but that's just me. But I really liked it. It was beautiful. And in an obviously very carefully analyzed way of how he chose, like what type of technical stuff he chose to incorporate into a simple piece. So I guess it would be 50-50. I really love the piece, and I love the way that he did it, at a higher level than maybe you usually hear it, because it's like a student piece, so.
I think a lot of people assume that liking something and respecting something are exactly the same thing. And they're not, because I often find that, just like you said, like you appreciate how he plays it, and you respect it, but it's not how you would do it, obviously. Right. And I think that's important, because first of all, music is so personal, and when we play it, we need to put ourselves in there. It has to be, our performances have to relate to us in some way, even if we are being the vessel that provides the emotions, the emotional experience for the audience. And I also find that, I'll listen to an artist and think that he or she has some amazing ideas, and I'll be so enthusiastic and filled with awe and respect over those ideas, but never in a million years would I ever do them myself, because when I actually start to play it, I think that's preposterous. I'm not going to do that.
It shouldn't be the same. Oh my God, it'd be so boring if every time you went to a concert and every violinist or every cellist or every violist, viola concerto, rare, but if everyone played it the same. Oh my gosh, I just feel like, oh, it'll kill me already. It's so I think just, to me, it's like being able to hear a piece done in an incredibly unique way or a different way, or just that to me is what's exciting. And because I always say, and this is not only classical music, but especially for classical music, because there isn't as much in terms of fog and lights and video traditionally, right? It's really just purely based on you. That's it. You're playing and we're all staring at you. And I think the job of a performer, not a recording artist, but a performer on stage, people pay their hard-earned money to be entertained. It's you got to deliver. It's and to be able to keep people's interest in a way where you do something that truly is wow, I want to want to hear more. I want to experience this. Like that to me is what, again, it's everybody has different opinions, but that to me is what a performer or artist should do, because then you could just listen to a perfectly edited recording of the piece. I mean, the piece doesn't change. The piece is a masterpiece already, but it's really the experience, you know, of what we get to have from other performers or whatnot.
Absolutely. So actually, that leads me to an interesting thought, and something that I'm curious to ask you, because I've often been asked the same thing. But when you get on stage to perform, I mean, you are such a dramatic performer. Like you express every minute of what you're doing, and it doesn't matter what kind of music you're playing. And I think that is both commendable and fascinating, because like people can see and experience what you're feeling. But I'm not trying to imply that anything is manufactured, because I don't imagine that like someone like you or even myself, you know, emotions are not manufactured. We play what we feel. But you know, when we're in the practice room, we're not handling ourselves exactly in the same way. So I'm just curious about your approach. Like when you do get on stage and you're no longer preparing for the performance, whatever it is, like how do you find yourself being expressive? Is it conscious, or is it subconscious, or like what's your mentality and your mindset?
Yes, definitely. And I love this question, because okay, so same like you, when I practice, I'm very methodical. It's like the opposite of, because again, trust me, nobody wants to watch a player who's like super emotional and then playing everything out of tune. It's not good, right? So I'm very methodical about, okay, learning the piece, making sure, you know, again, I'm not limited by my own limitations technically. If you're playing a piece and you're still worried about, oh my God, am I gonna like be able to play this, or am I gonna play it in tune? I feel like it takes you out of like being a vessel of expression, and then more of just like a mechanic person, like trying to like figure out what to play. But the second I step on stage, and this is whether or not I'm playing complex music, and it's the same for other types of music as well. Hopefully, if you've prepared enough where your brain can go into like a different, instead of thinking, it goes into, I guess some people call it the flow, you know, where you kind of just lose all sense of time or whatnot. And for me, I have had performances where I didn't practice enough, and usually it's the classical stuff, because classical to me is still more high pressure. And there's certain moments where I like exit the flow, and I'm thinking, oh God, I should have practiced this more. I should have practiced this passage more, you know, am I going to play right? Oh no, it's going to be terrible. This is so embarrassing. Why am I still doing classical music? Why did I say yes? And literally a panic on stage thinking about this, you know. But for the most part, if I've prepared properly and I've practiced it enough, when I'm performing on stage, the emotional part of it, it's actually weird, because even when I video myself a lot when I practice, just to like hear what it sounds like, and also I guess to see, like, make sure all the positions are right. But when I video myself just for myself, and I know it's just for myself, and then when I do a live stream, because recently, you know, I've been doing a lot like weekly live streams, it is totally different, because a different part of it kicks in where you're sharing. It's not so much like performing or putting on like a fake act or something, but you're sharing. And for me, sharing my music, it's not about playing the notes. It is about expressing like emotion. That's all it is. It's just another language to speak in that, you know, is not limited by words. And so I guess my approach, I don't even know if I could quantify it into words. It's like switching from thinking to feeling. It's like, it's almost not like a blackout, but it's just feeling. So for me, everything's about emotion and feeling. And sometimes people are like, whoa, that's like psycho. Like sometimes if I'm playing very aggressive music, it is like pure, like demonic rage, you know? And for me, I think it's a safe way for me to express certain feelings that, you know, I have, or different people carry in themselves. And some people go to therapy, some people go to scream therapy, some people play the electric cello very aggressively, you know? And for me, just in my personal way that I've taken, you know, this, I guess, gift of music that I didn't want, but I was forced into, but I've been able, thank God, you know, to turn it into something that I like, something that I love. And, you know, being able to, yeah, just get like, I think, lost in the moment emotionally. I know I keep saying the same thing over and over, but I can't like say enough, like how much of a, like emotional and non-mental experience it is, but ironically it can only get there if you're extremely mental about it, you know, in the beginning phases of preparing.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's like something clicks, like a switch pops, you know,
Yeah.
and then suddenly your head is like in a new zone or another dimension, and it's kind of like you said with the blackout, but not really a blackout. Because a lot of times, like, someone will ask me right after walking off stage, "So how was it?" I'm like, I have no idea. Like, I don't remember anything.
It is definitely a switch, and for me, I feel like for the most part, I feel like I actually play better in concerts than when I practice. So I guess that's a good thing. I think, again, unless I didn't practice enough, so that's a different story. But yeah, like a part of why I also love performing so much is because my own personal, selfishly, my own experience with playing music, I can't reach that high. I can't get it, that orgasmic feeling. I can't get it if I'm doing it myself. Something about like the shared energy and just, I mean, I don't know. I don't think it makes sense right now. I think you understand what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah, it's like you can be anything, anyone. Like, no part of yourself is you know, embarrassing or wrong or criminal, or these are some interesting words I'm using.
in the moment, purely in, that's the only thing in our existence. That's the only, like, everything else is gone. It's like nothing.
It's like you said, it's a safe space. It's completely safe. Like, nothing can happen to you when you're in that zone, in that flow. And
Unless the light falls on our head, but
yeah.
but yes, in the like mentally and emotionally, it's like we're like in a vortex, you know, of whatever. So
I think it's so great that you brought that up because I feel like, especially in the classical music world, I feel like a lot of people look at it and look at what we do when we're preparing for a concerto gig as being only methodical and only analytical, and that when we're on stage, yes, there's an extreme amount of focus, but I think the impression often is that the focus is still methodical and analytical, but it's exactly like what you said. The methodology and the practice and the analyzing all happens behind the scenes when no one's looking, and when we're not fully immersing ourselves emotionally. But then when we're on stage, it's just none of that. It's just us trying to be ourselves, or the music, or a combination of both. And I think that's also why I'm so drawn to you as an artist, because, you know, I see that I see that you get into that zone, and it's all just like Tina's passion for whatever music you're playing in that moment, which is so cool. Like, I think that's what being an artist is all about.
yeah, and it really did take me a long time to get there. I don't know if you have the same experience, but like I also tell that sometimes to young players who maybe feel like nervous or shy, and I tell them I was the most awkward, like you have no clue. I was so shy and awkward in real life, like in person. I was afraid to talk to people. And I even did a couple competitions that I lost where the judges knew my parents because they were local music teachers, and one of them even told my dad, "You should have her stop playing. She has no talent. She'll never get anywhere." But my whole point in saying this is that if you're like a musician and you somehow are still, you have like, because it's normal to have a mental block. It's like being, I don't know, it's not being embarrassed, you know, like, oh, what if I make a weird face, or what if I, you know, like, I don't want to, I want to be in control. And I think when we let go of control, that's when you can truly allow yourself to feel all your feelings, good or bad. I mean, they're there. And that's when you can truly let go as like a performer or artist or whatever it is that we're doing, because you're not like holding yourself back because you're afraid of, you know, being judged or whatever. And I do feel like that's probably one of the hardest things to do, to get to that point, because so many people, including myself, starting out, were so self-conscious, you know. And I don't know how I got out of it. I just feel like it was maybe just years and years and years and years of just like performing over and over. And like, I actually don't know, if you ask me, how did you go from like a super awkward nerd who was like, you know, dying like anytime I was in public, to like now where I live for it and I love it. I think it's just getting used to something and doing it over and over and over again, and you suddenly become comfortable. And I think just reaching that point where you can truly feel free to move, because so many of like young students, you know, I think they're again so stuck in like the mental stuff, which of course you have to be because you're trying to figure out how on earth do I play this instrument, but also in like everything's just so like rigid, you know. And I think it's so important to eventually somehow get to the point where you can feel free to, like, the whole point of music is to express stuff, you know?
Right. I think I imagine that a lot of it also has to do with, you know, for example, with you just following and constantly, you know, like just working on your passion and letting yourself get into that and putting yourself in that flow, as you called it, because I think that's also what helps us grow beyond whatever social anxieties that we have, or discomforts or awkwardness, because I know that I feel like awkward just as a human being, and and it's like, it's such a weird thing for me because I'm actually one of those who doesn't get nervous for concerts. I get nervous for rehearsals, and I get nervous for like conducting interviews, such as this one. But like if there's a concert and I'm playing on it, then I'm just happy, but then the moment that I stop playing and the concert's over and people are clapping and I'm supposed to smile and bow, and then I become human again, right? And that's when I go back into my awkward phase, and I just try to run off stage as quickly as possible. I don't know if people have ever seen, but it's like after I finish playing, I bow, and then I'm like, okay, I gotta get out of here.
For me, it's always like a relief, because so like once I'm out of it, you suddenly snap back, like you said, into reality. You're like, okay, I didn't mess this up, or I still have a career. Oh, and for me, it's just like, oh my God. And usually I eat a pizza or something afterwards, and it's just like relief, like, oh my gosh, you know? So, but yeah, definitely stepping out of that magic moment back into reality is something I guess, to have to deal with, you know?
Well, next time we perform together, you know, you can order your pizza afterward. I'll get fries. We can have a junk food post-concert party. All right, well, thank you so much, Tina, for being here today. I'm so glad. I think this is the first time that we've actually had a chance to like sit down and talk about this stuff together, because usually we're just having tea and talking about non-musical things.
Yes, definitely. No, this has truly been amazing. So thank you for having me.
Well, you're such a great interviewee. Thanks again. And don't work too hard, because I know you do.
You too.
All right, and stay safe.
Thank you. You too. Bye.
Bye. Thank you all for spending a little time today with me and Tina Guo. I so look forward to seeing you again for my next episode of Classical Conscience. Stay tuned to find out more. Bye. On October 7th, join me and the ingenious composer Marco Beltrami in our discussion of how his early musical passions inspire his writing today. Looking forward to it!